Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. Perry Young is the real deal. He plays Father Jun on the hit show Warrior, but he is also a warrior in real life. I am inspired by his activism in the community, and I want to be just like Perry when I grow up. I'm grateful to have had him back on the show to discuss his new film, The Harvest, and season 3 of Warrior. Don't worry, fans, there are no spoiler alerts in this episode. He also shares his love for music and collaboration with fellow artists in the band Judo Club. They recently recorded the song Stop Asian Hate and will be doing a fundraiser on GoFundMe to make a film about the journey. The link will be in the post. It is an honor to have guests like Perry on the show. I truly enjoy these conversations and hope you do too. If you do, please share this podcast with others and rate it on your platform of choice. If you would like to support with a donation to help keep this podcast going and support the work I do, you can become a patron of the show by visiting my website or patreon.com/SifuMimiChan. For comments or suggestions, reach out on social media at SifuMimiChan. Now, on with the show. Hello, Perry. Nice to see you.
Hello, Sifu Mimi Chan.
Oh,
you're going to hear New York City coming by.
Oh, well, it makes this very authentic.
Can you hear the siren? Oh, it just happened.
I don't, but it's
good.
So authentic, you know. How is NYC?
It's a love-hate relationship. It's mostly love, but there's like everything in the Tao, it has this opposite side. But if you just, I think, live in the light, it's a beautiful city.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I absolutely love it there. And I'm actually blessed because one of my most recent memories of actually being in NYC is seeing you and having tea in Chinatown. And then, I talked to Hoon Lee the other day and I said, I had this lovely tea with Perry in Chinatown. And before you know it, like I'm there at a rally with him the next day. So he's like, that tracks.
Hoon's great. I love Hoon. Yeah.
But I mean,
it was great seeing you in New York too. It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Isn't it a small community with what you're doing in the martial arts world? Because someone walks up and goes, I know your dad.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. But I guess, when you think back to the olden days of Boston and New York, Chinatown, I mean, it was a very tight knit community. Mm-hmm. And it was very much a community that like really relied on one another. And even, I think even more so than now, like now, of course, it's super important. And I think we have social media, we have all these other things to connect us. But at that time, man, it was language barriers, and it was very much like that up and coming of that really like it was almost even I'd say dare I say closed off community too, right?
Well, yeah, I mean historically we were forced to be insular,
exactly,
right? Like even still today, a lot of communities are forced to be insular.
Yeah,
and it has opened up for us, but then you could see how this accordion or a circular effect happens, and it's because of the pandemic and the anti-Asian violence in the last 3 years, we became closed off again, to seek, like solace or power in numbers or safety in numbers.
Yeah.
So it's a weird, strange phenomena.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because I was looking at last time we spoke, it actually was right before the Atlanta spa shooting. I think it may have aired after, but like we're talking about, okay, all this violence has been rising. And then of course that happened. And, you and I met in New York and we ended up at the rally for Mr. Ma. And that was, I was so grateful to be able to even share in that moment with you and great shout out to Carlin, who is always on it.
And you can see how things happen just like that, right? Like we just, Carlin, we bumped into him on the street and he says, come to the rally tomorrow.
Yep.
And, when you're in a community, that's how fast things move.
Yeah.
You don't have time to plan.
Yes. I mean, and, kudos to you though, because you always seem to drop whatever it is you're doing, and you always seem to make time to be an activist. And I look up to you so much. And it's just, I see you at these rallies. I see you, whether you're sharing your music, you're sharing your voice, and just your presence sometimes. Sometimes you're not even like, I'm going to limelight this. You're just there. And you're the real deal, sir. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. I mean, it's just like what else am I going to do? You know, I mean,
I don't
what else
know. A
is
lot of people
important,
do
you know?
nothing. So,
I've done that too, right? And doing something for your community just feels so much better. I mean,
yeah.
it's just gratifying to serve, your community because of, if you understand your history, it's like, we need to stick together on this, and whatever platform I have that can help others, and, in just the simplest way, it's meaningful to me.
Yeah. I was kind of teasing you off air. My husband and I, we don't do social much, but you're like one of the few people I actually keep on my feed to follow because I love seeing your posts, especially the most recent, like where you're with your guitar and it's like black and white. I was like, oh, Perry's so fucking cool. I'm like, I want to be him when I grow up. Oh my God, you're so cool. Tell me about like the music you've been creating. And I mean, we talked about the shakuhachi flute last time, but I see you're doing gigs. You're like in a band, and you're kind of going full force now with even more music.
Well, yeah, I mean, music, rock and roll, punk rock, it kind of saved my life when I was a kid, and
Really?
yeah, and I never left it. It's always been in me, that sort of spirit of the guitar and revolution through music. And I just looked at all my favorite heroes, and that's what they did. Jimi Hendrix, for example, is one of my favorite heroes, and in a way, a mentor, because I just saw what he did for society through his music, and just for the pure fact of he loved what he was doing, and it wasn't for any other reason. It wasn't like he set out to change society or anything. It was because he loved playing music, and he went out gigging, and that power of love cut through everything else and spoke to everyone. So I love playing music, and I've always played music for a long time in bands. Even with my first theater company in New York City called Slant, there was three Asian guys, and I just wanted to have fun with them. And it was, theater was great, but theater, at sometimes for me, theater can get boring, like just people talking. And I just rock and roll, the electric guitar and drums just invigorates any situation. So I thought it was, to make it a point, I wanted to make it a point for Slant to have fun and to sort of invigorate our thoughts through music, and, the energetic sort of, kinetic response that can change people through music. And in this pandemic situation, it was like, I was, with my family, quarantined a lot, and I started playing guitar more than ever because nobody was doing anything. Nobody was going out, auditioning, doing gigs or anything. We're just holed up in our apartment or house. So luckily I had my instruments around, and I would strum songs, and I started to learn songs on YouTube, and it just reinvigorated this thought of like activism through music. And again, one of my mentors is Fred Ho, who started the Afro-Asian Art Ensemble. And it was about uniting people of color through jazz, which is a revolutionary music at the time. So, and Fred was one of my mentors that was doing art as activism and music and creating solidarity through disparate communities, to, point out the systemic inequities of our society. Yeah. So I thought, you know what, I want to like play music again with a band and just like play songs that are meaningful. So, what happened was a dear friend of ours, an OG Asian American actor, Chinese American actor named Jeff Lee, he passed away because of cancer during COVID. Mm. And so a lot of Chinatown actors got together and his family had a memorial, but, it was full of actors and activists and musicians, because that's what he did for like, he was at almost 70, I think, when he passed away.
Wow.
So Richard Abhara, who was in Slant, and I wanted to play a song at his memorial. And it turns out that we had two other friends, Jun Suinaga and Billy Asai, who had a song, and with Alvin Ng, novelist and rocker, had a song. So we all thought, why don't we just play as a band? We'll learn a couple of covers, and so we did Jeff's memorial, and it went over so well. We thought, hey, we should just do this because it's fun. Yeah. We're all like AAPI and kind of OGs in a sense, that we just want to do it for the fun of playing music and sharing, the content of the moment. So Billy just, at our first rehearsal after Jeff's memorial, Billy said, "I got a song called Stop Asian Hate."
Yeah.
And he played it for us on a guitar. And I went, that is a song we have to do. Like, we have to do that song justice right now. It was one of those things in the world where everything comes together in that moment, and
Yeah.
it's sort of like the temperature in the room changes and the light
Right.
changes. And you're like, your heart starts to pump and you go, I can dig into this piece and commit to it and see it, see it to fruition. So we rehearsed for his Billy's partner got us a gig, Martina, on the street in the. It was actually a year ago in the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander month a year ago. So we did this gig on the street. We played a few songs acoustic. And we've been working on it ever since, on and off, because I've been out of town. People, go in and out of town.
Yeah.
But we finally got another invite to do the song at Times Square for the anniversary of the women, the women shot in Atlanta, and we thought this is the perfect opportunity to do this song, and we offered it as to all those who were face violence during this time, especially the women, because it was in that moment to acknowledge how could we move forward with these attacks on Asian AAPI NH women. So we made a dedication to our ancestors, and we played the song, and it just, the energy was so amazing. And we thought, we have to make this part of the community. We have to make this song part of the community. It's not about us. The song was germinated and was birthed through what was happening to our community. So we thought, this is actually the first announcement I'm going to make, is we're going to do a fundraiser, because we're recording the song to make a film about this moment with our community. So look out for the GoFundMe fundraiser soon. It's gonna drop, and it's gonna include all of our people who can come to New York City to film with us.
Oh,
so that's the thing I'm very excited about. The band is called Judo Club, and the song is called Stop Asian Hate, and that is what I'm so excited about doing right now.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It's just so inspiring to see, but also I'll absolutely link that here when it goes live and everything. So glad we got to talk about it. And yeah, I've been following you and watching that, and I'm always very envious. I don't get to be there when you're doing all your live performances. And I know even Slant, you guys got back together over the last couple years too, and have done stuff. And I'm just like, I need to be in New York City. I'm missing out. I've got
Well, I think
FOMO.
you're doing some pretty amazing things in Florida.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And it's been a struggle, because it's like a different community here in Florida with the Asian Americans. It's like we're very spread out. We don't have a Chinatown in the same way. We have little places in some of the major cities that have communities, and they've been very, very separate over the years. Like, honestly, everybody operates in their own world, and they rarely kind of come together. And I've actually, the reason I started the work I did, with the Asian American Education Project and trying to get API history in our schools, it's been something that brought all of us together across the state. And so that's been very exciting to see. It's like we're all sharing in one conversation now, and really finally behind something together. And so that's been a really positive thing about all of this. So
congratulations on that, because just bringing communities together means that we're actually challenging systemic racism.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Right. It's about separating us. Systemic institutionalized racism separates people. So it takes an effort like Fred Ho naming his jazz orchestra Afro-Asian American
love that.
Orchestra, because it's about identity, representation, and putting out, the message is that we need to come together.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and beyond just the AAPI community, AAPI NH, we've been working across diverse communities, work with the Hispanic community, African American community. I've been so grateful actually for the advice of, especially, our Black leaders, like one of our senators. He's been like essential in kind of helping guide us, because they've struggled way longer. They've had quite a struggle continuously, and it's just constant. And so just kind of being able to get that guidance has been essential. So I'm still learning. I'm constantly learning, and through leaders like yourself, it's been fascinating to watch. But what I do want to ask you about, because another thing we spoke about last time, I think it was when we saw each other, you were preparing for your role in The Harvest, which is now, congrats, just like sweeping the nation in film festivals, and so much love is going around. And I got to admit, I didn't know anything about the Hmong culture until Suni Lee, and just I'm one of those that's just was completely ignorant and so embarrassing. But you and I had spoken about it, and you were actually prepping for the role, and you were kind of nervous, if you don't mind me sharing. You were like a little bit like kind of like, oh, I really want to nail this, and you're in your mode. But I'd love to hear a little bit about it, just the production process, but your preparation, all of it. I want to hear everything.
Well, The Harvest is a film that is written by Doa Moa, who is the actor who first made his entry into film with Clint Eastwood's Gran Torino. He played a young gang leader named Spider, and the film was great. It put Hmong people on the map. Right, it's the first Hollywood film that actually had Hmong people in it. And after the filming, Doa went, well, what's next for me? And it's like, not much. So he started writing this film. The Harvest, based on his, semi-autobiographical. And I must admit that I'm quite in awe of what Doa has done, because it's really, it's like climbing a mountain. It's like an ant climbing a mountain when you want to make your own film, and he did it.
Yeah.
He did it in the most amazing way, and it's inspiring because it's going against everything society tells you not to do. So Doa writes the script. He gets funding, finds a producer, casts it, finds the director, meets with people. This takes years of work and focus, and you can't do this kind of work unless you are 100% sold on what you're doing. You can't sort of half-ass. Excuse my language. You can't do that. You gotta commit and believe 100% in what you're doing, because society is against you. So he writes a beautiful story, and in one of the Q&As he says, well, I kind of wrote a good script for me because no one else was going to do it. And I went, and because you wrote this good script, I had a good role. And the woman, Dawn, who plays my wife, has a great role. And the woman who plays my daughter has a great role, and the director, Kaylee, had a great, job to do. So it's because of one man's vision that all these other people had great work to do. And it's such a beautiful, intimate story about intergenerational communication or breakdown in a family, in an American family. And this movie can ring true for anyone who has difficulty with generational cultural agreements.
Yeah.
Their father or kids, because it looks at it from all sides of the husband, wife, son, and daughter. And you kind of go, all their complaints are legit, depending on what ideology you were sold into. And when things don't agree with that, that's when the tension comes about. And it's handled so beautifully by Kaylee So, the director, and it's such an intimate story. And I think anyone who is able to sit and watch this story unfold is going to, be given a gift, because we rarely see this kind of story told so beautifully and nuanced without pulling any sort of the Hollywood tricks of keeping the, audience, engaged, with tricks and, music and all this stuff and, beautiful camera editing and DP. This is just a very simply told, beautiful story that just gets you right in the heart.
Right.
So without, really giving any spoilers, I mean, when it's sold, when it's distributed, it's at the Cannes Film Festival market right now.
Yeah,
so
congrats.
There's an agent meeting with people, potential buyers to sell it. And we've got so many good reviews and accolades from disparate people, all that's so disconnected. Like Duan just shared one that I shared on my IG coming from the recent Miss Universe, who's Laotian and who loved the film, and then there was this, African-American athlete and, all these other people who just are making public statements about the film, and these are people from very different parts of life
Yeah.
that this film is touching. And I hope that we find the right distributor who
Yeah.
sees the vision of this film, and that it can actually change the way that people make tell stories in Hollywood. So
Yeah.
that's my hope for The Harvest. I'm so excited for it.
Oh, yes. I'm very excited as well. I mean, you guys haven't come to Florida yet, I don't think, unless I missed it. But
Not yet.
again,
Not
I
yet.
got to go to New York, yet another reason, right?
I think it'll
But
be here in August.
okay. Hint, hint. Oh my gosh. Well, I love hearing this because, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with the big Marvel explosions and the DCs and all of the fancy, like you say, visual effects and everything. I'm a little tired of it. Like I'm a little exhausted by them, and I'm like, okay, you have something on in the background, but it's not something like you said that like really reaches you here necessarily. And just like storytelling is so important, especially one that tells it authentically. And so it just doesn't seem like it can get any more authentic than this one being told. Just like the care of which it's been taken from each step. And yeah, kudos, because that is definitely, I have a very small understanding of what it takes to make a film, and it is not an easy thing. And so, wow, that's a really amazing thing to be a part of. Is there something about the Hmong culture that, and I didn't know in my mind, I've seen Gran Torino. I just don't think in my mind there was a connectivity that was what was there. And so, is there something that you kind of learned that you didn't know before? Or is there things that you had to research to kind of prepare for that? Because I know that you're very conscious about ensuring that you're always portraying things authentically. And even though you're Asian, it doesn't mean like we automatically know everything. Like that's the myth, right? Like, oh, we know everything about every Asian country just because we're Asian. And it's like, we're not a monolith. There's so much there. So I was curious, like, to just even share, because like I said, I'm a little bit ignorant in the space of understanding about the culture.
That's a big question, and I've learned a lot from this process in many ways. Not just as an actor, but as I think as an activist and as just a human being. Because I mean, on one level, I had to meet. Well, on the most basic level, I had to meet and learn something about Hmong culture. So, and I had to learn some Hmong language, and I've had to learn different languages. In different roles, or brush up on different languages in different roles. But to actually learning Hmong was quite difficult, like learning any Asian language that's based on tones. So I had it's extremely difficult. Even acting is difficult if you're acting in your normal language, but imagine acting in a different language. So, it's, other than the basic exercises and drilling I did all day, every day for a month, I met, I had a great tutor in Hmong, and then I went and met on my own with Hmong people that spoke Hmong, so I could actually hear them speak naturally. So that not just learning from a teacher, I had to hear the tonality,
like
hear
immersion.
Where the voice is coming. Exactly. And different people, different kind of Hmong people.
Yeah.
And I went to a big face group, Hmong face group in New York that like every Hmong person in New York is involved with. Yeah. So I went to their picnics, and I hung out with them. And what was really interesting is the Hmong people, because they're a race, or they're an ethnic culture people, but they have no physical country, right? Yes. So Hmong people are spread out through Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, China, Vietnam. Did I say Vietnam? So they're very connected to the culture, and actually a lot of them are related, because it's just like they all know each other. Right. And so when I met up with the Facebook group, it's actually a group that Doyle started when he lived in New York. All of them knew each other. Many of them were cousins, and many of them were somehow related to Doyle. And they could point back, at like, oh, because of so-and-so's mother and cousin so-and-so. Right. And all this because it's such a tight culture. And I started to think, well, Chinese were probably like that 4 generations ago when we first came to America. And it was a small, tight-knit community facing a lot of, unknowns in the outside world and violence and all that stuff. And it's like we had to stay tight and together and know each other. And this is probably how the Hmong community is now because it's small. This is the first generation in New York. Oh my God. And last summer, there was a baby, a Hmong baby born, and all of them were celebrating the baby because it was the first Hmong baby born in New York City.
Oh, wow.
That's how new the cult community is, just to be able to celebrate that baby, and it was just fascinating. And it was such a warm collective group of people. And so just on that basic level, I got to know the people a little, just to know what I want to do justice with. Yes. And then the second level was representation, in Hollywood. It's like, there's a lot of, for people of color, especially for Asian Americans in the last few years, it's like we want to be authentic with who we represent. Right. And this is, a little tricky and the waters are muddy. So I want to be clear and conscious about how different communities and different people and actors approach and understand what they're doing in Hollywood when it comes to race casting.
Yeah.
If a white person in Hollywood writes a story based in Chinatown, we want those characters to be cast, the actors Chinese, especially if they're speaking Chinese.
Right.
If a Chinese person casts a story and they're trying to tell the best story they could from their point of view, and I think they can have a leeway with who they cast depending on what works for their story, because that Chinese storyteller is not the gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. He was not the gatekeeper. She was not the gatekeeper. She was not the one that oppressed us before and cast us as these sort of flat racial stereotypes.
Yeah.
So, I had to talk with Doyle about that. And he goes, you're the one that could play my dad. Mm-hmm. That's all there is to it. It's not about being Hmong, Japanese, Chinese, or whatever, so that's, and he is the creative creator. Yes. It's his world. It's his vision. He's coming from a place of the other that was struggling against the gatekeeper, and he wants the best for his film.
Yeah.
So he knows what's best. So, just to be clear, I'm always wanting to help the creator, the person who has the creative idea first. And if it's coming from Hollywood, if it's coming from a white man who's been, has all the power and historically the gatekeeper, I'm going to question a lot of choices and whether the role is right for me or whether I should audition for the role, because I think there's a better actor for that role if you're, casting, something that's not Chinese. Mm-hmm. And again, so depending on the situation, is very nuanced, the discussion, and depending on who's casting, what the story is, does the person is actually saying something that, language wise, that represents Chinese culture, and who should that person be? So it's about the power, the hierarchy from the top down.
Yeah.
And if you're a struggling indie filmmaker and you just want to make the best film you can, it's a different ball game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I learned that for myself.
Yeah.
I guess those are the two main things. And then the other thing was just like, how do I become this person that I'm not? Oftentimes you're cast into roles that you go, oh, I know that person. I see that character in me. Okay. And that's why they cast me, because they see that person in me, and that person is in me, although I could just do some tweaks. But for the father role, that person wasn't in me, I thought. But Doyle, saw that person in me. So I had to kind of find that person in me. So that was quite a challenge. And I really felt like, it's a gift when you're given something that you really have to struggle with, to explore, to kind of break your own boundaries of who you think you are, what you can do, and just go with the story, go with the authenticity of what the writer wrote and how it speaks to you and what his life is. And can you get into his life and help him? I'm speaking about Doyle, realize his vision. Being given that kind of role is a gift. And I would say that, it's a gift of a lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. What a privilege. And thank you for kind of breaking that down, because it really clears and answers so many things. There's always so many questions about appropriation and who can do what. And it is very, very, like you said, personal and situational, because in this case, it's his story. And, I remember when you and I spoke about it, you're like, no, he wants me to play it. And I'm like, yeah, you're like the father. Like this is a recurring theme, Father Jun, very different father, I'm thinking from the one in the harvest. But yeah, I really appreciate that kind of insight and the experience in which you just shared, because it is, I think, something that we don't kind of hear about enough in that mainstream, where it's either or. Like it's not so black and white, where it's like Hollywood filmmakers versus indie filmmakers as well, because you find, like, back in the day, indie filmmakers really meant a little bit more of what Dua's experience was. Whereas like now you see indie films and it's like, these all A-list actors and all of this stuff. I'm like, I remember when indie films were all just really like grassroots, like everybody was doing like multiple jobs on the project, and it was like kind of a different feel. But yeah, that's super insightful. And, I obviously have to talk to you about Father Jun and Warrior. And I know you can't share too much, but your fans, I did such a bad job on Hoon's interview because we didn't talk enough about Warrior. So I was like, I'm not going to make the same mistake with Perry. I'm going to get people yelling at me. But I mean, what was it like for the reunion? It's been so long. There's been such a break, but now it gives everyone a chance to rewatch 1 and 2 to get psyched up. But what was it like to finally kind of connect? I know you've seen people through the years, but this must have been amazing.
It was amazing. And, it's like, when I first heard about, it's like this is when I first heard about them shooting The Wizard of Oz, and you had all the dwarfs in one place at once, and they went, "Oh my God, I've never been in with so many dwarfs."
Yeah.
And I apologize if anybody finds that offensive. I don't know of another way to say it.
I am with you. I'm not quite sure for the Munchkin land, right? For the actors that portrayed, yes.
And they were just in heaven because they've never been around so many. In one place. And it's kind of like with The Warrior, we've never been around so many Asian American actors, or not just Asian American, but transnational Asian. We're Canada, Vietnam, Indonesia, Hong Kong, right? Yeah. And Hapa. So it was really kind of like, it was kind of like a love fest, because we just love each other,
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave out any of the non-Asian actors too, because we love them too,
Yes,
I mean, it's just like, wow, we didn't think we'd be back. And here we are. So that was a double whammy, and it just made everything so much more precious in a way, but incredible and joyful, and again, like a gift. Like, we were just given a gift to like be together and tell the story. And again, everybody loves Shannon and Jonathan Tropper and the everyone, all the creative team. I heard that a lot of people had other jobs. The crew in South Africa had other jobs, but they gave up their other filming jobs that paid more to work on Warrior, because it's just so fun. I love seeing the DPs behind the camera, and they're just every day, how's it going? And then let's shoot this. It's just so fun. It's amazing. And to be given that opportunity, to be given a second chance, a second life, is always a gift. And Cape Town is such a beautiful, beautiful, kind of insular bubble of South Africa that every day was just I can't believe I'm here. I'm pinch myself.
It seems that way. And, I've been really fortunate. Langley, we talk often, and then like on this, we talk here too. And he's like the number one salesperson for Cape Town. I'm like, I want to be there now. Like, he's always sharing all these really cool things about the town, the city, and just, plus he does all those crazy triathlon, so we get to see like the landscape of it through his eyes. But yeah, it just seems like such a magical place. But I feel like Warrior is this magical set. Like there's just something very special. I've had such a privilege to be able to talk to so many of your castmates and to so many of you that have shared in this experience. And it's kind of like you said, the love fest. It's all the same. Like everyone really gets along, and not to be negative about other TV shows or sets, but it's not always the case that you have such cohesion, right? Like this is something very unique.
This is something very unique. Absolutely. I mean, I've been on other recurring characters and where I've been on a set on a show for a couple of episodes or season, cast regulars. So it's like we're all friendly and professional and cordial, and but not everybody goes out to people's homes and have dinners and picnics and weekend parties and barbecues.
Yeah.
Like Langley is a very different person from Blakely. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's always like, "Hey guys, I'm having a barbecue, right?"
Yeah.
And like he's great. Everybody loves him. I mean,
yes.
He feels like, I think, the de facto host.
He does, because he lives there.
So he wants us to have a good time. And sometimes I feel like saying, Langley, we're having a great time without you, or without the work you do, or not is much appreciated.
Yes.
It's so much appreciated. I mean, when I landed on got off the plane and I went to the first training session for me, Langley was there and he goes like, "Let's do lunch." I was like, absolutely, like right away. Because I hadn't seen him, and he's like,
yes.
I gotta have lunch with you, So it's like that, it's like we just, oh my God, he's here. He's, it's like, and I'm I am the biggest fan of all the actors, When I see them, I go, oh no, there's Assam, oh wait, I know him, it's like, it's pretty funny. Oh, there's Wang Chao. Oh wait, it's only Hoon, It's like they're so much larger than life,
Yeah.
Right. Even in my own mind. And I train with them every day and I see them on set every day and have lunch with them every day. But sometimes I'll see them just walk into makeup and go, "There's Young Jun." It's pretty wild. It's pretty
right.
wild.
It must be. I mean, I'm just so excited. And that reunion just sounded like so much fun. I was trying really hard to get there, but it just didn't happen. But I heard anyway, there was a lot of COVID restrictions, of course, too, because of South Africa. So like set was kind of really, really wasn't visitable anyhow. But question on Langley, did he have lamb when you had lunch together? Because I know that his nickname is Lamley.
He may have. He ordered a breakfast special, and it might have been like a lamb sausage.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, going back to the COVID restrictions, it was really actually more difficult in some ways. That was the only negative part of this, I think, season, is that we couldn't go as easily to sets and watch our fellow actors film as
okay. So even for you all, it was difficult. Okay.
Season 1 and 2, we would just walk up and show up and watch people film. But this time we'd have to get a clearance and get a ride. It was all very different, And so that was the only downturn of the COVID restrictions. And a couple of people caught it. Actually, I also caught COVID there, and that delayed my return.
Oh.
For 2 weeks, because we had to push back my shoot for 2 weeks just so I can get cleared to film. And then and I wasn't the only one. There were, several other cast members.
Yeah, it happens.
When the cast gets COVID, it's hard because then they have to wait for us to clear.
Right.
But if a crew member gets COVID, they replace the crew member.
Of course.
So, it's good to know that we're kind of irreplaceable in some ways.
There's only one Father Jun. I know you can't do any spoilers, but what can viewers expect? Like, people are so excited. It feels like it's been so long since that last episode.
Well, I would only talk about myself a little bit or my role with Young Jun. You mentioned earlier about Father Jun's father roles, and in The Harvest, I'm a father, and during the pandemic, I actually filmed Boogie, with Eddie Huang and father in that. And the father son, I played Ronnie Chang's father, so I have all these incredible sons. I have all these incredible sons, and daughters before. But so I'm a different father in all of them. And even if some of you have been tracking Father Jun's relationship with Young Jun, it's been changing, right? Season 1. His relationship changed in season 2, and in season 3, it's changed again. And I love it because it really just shows how fluid relationships are. And we can be this way. I can be the tough dad for this year, But then when you're, a little older, I'm a more relaxed dad. And I can say that from my own experience of having kids now that are like just out of high school and going to college. I am so much more relaxed now with them, than I was, and I don't think I was a tough dad, but I just wasn't like as cool as I am with them now, and so I think with young June, we have a new relationship going into it that I think that the audience will find expands who Father Jun is and expands their idea of what who young June was. So much kudos to the writers for giving us that room to sort of like grow and giving the relationship of an Asian father and son representation on television grow into something we've never seen before. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. And especially, in a role like this too, you would think it could be very glossed over, that part of it, because it's like kind of an action show. You guys are gangsters. It could have been very glossed over. But like you said, there's a really, really specific father-son dynamic that plays. And especially, as an Asian heritage, like you feel that, like, going in, okay, this is a Asian dad and son, and there's certain dynamic to that and tension, So
it's really funny
over that.
No, it's really funny when I meet people, strangers, fans or whatnot on somewhere, and they'll say, "Oh my God, Father Jun, when I see you, I feel like I'm seeing my dad," and I've heard that several times, and it just goes, wow, it's like there's something about just. Because I'm an older authoritative figure, obviously I'm not their dad, but they finally go, I see my dad, it's like, which they rarely ever see on TV, American TV, so I again, much kudos to the writers for giving us that space, that room for representation.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I mean, we're so excited for it. The trailer looks incredible, and just kind of seeing the little teasers of everybody that you've missed so much along the way. And like I said, I'm so grateful I've been able to talk to so many people. I have to get back on it. I need to start kind of getting back through and getting everybody on before it premieres. But
I just watched season 1 and 2 myself. Just be ready. Yeah, it's amazing. It's like, oh my God, I'm in the show.
I love it. You're a fan of the show.
I'm a fan of all my fellow actors. I watch them because I know them. Like you get a glimpse because you've been interviewing us, because I know how different they are in real life. And then when I see them on screen, I just see the talent.
Right.
Because they're not.
They literally transform, and you're going, oh. Well, I mean, for the most part on Warrior, I'm glad that most of the actors are not that person. Those are some pretty frightful characters, I have to say. But what's really great is they're all relatable, though, right? Because even though they're like this, I'm an assassin or I'm a murderer or I'm a gangster, they're always that relatability, which shows the genius of the writing, like you said, that the characters are still relatable, even though they're these, kind of people that we aren't in real life necessarily, right? So that's
the great
really
thing
cool
about the writing and these actors is that they show us that we can be these people. We're flawed and we try and we have dreams and we fail.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we have dreams that each one of us has a dream that we want to see realized, and the struggle is real. So there's a kind of empathy that the directors, the writers, the show, the showrunners see in the show that really presses a button, in our audiences.
Yeah. And so I have to ask, like, you have so much time on your hands, between all the activism and the filming and all this, but what are you doing now? What's next? What's on your plate? It feels like every day there's something new with you.
Well, right after we log off, I'm going to go downtown and strike with a writer's strike.
Of course you are.
Yeah. Because
are you part of the WGA?
No.
Just solidarity.
Is the Writers Guild, right? So
as the
SAG, yes,
SAG's going to be striking.
Yeah, and we've been, a lot of SAG actors have been marching in solidarity, and we're going to go up. We're probably going to strike soon because our contract's up, and then also the Directors Guild of America, DGA, will probably be striking soon too. So this is a moment when we all have to stand together in solidarity against extreme greed and capitalism.
Yes.
Nobody's asking for more money. We're just asking for fair living wages when these CEOs and board members are making millions of dollars, billions of dollars,
Yes.
and they're keeping the numbers hidden, for streaming revenues, just so that we can't bargain, properly. So it's just like we don't even know, but the numbers we do know are very small, guaranteed compared to what
Exactly.
they.
Yeah, I'm really glad you
So,
brought that up because people don't seem to understand the whole streaming versus so I'm still a SAG member. Like, I get my 32-cent residual check off of, Mortal Kombat that I worked on back in the 90s or whatever. Like I'm very, very proud, very proud. I was like, oh my God, the postage costs more than this check.
you got to start getting direct deposit.
Yeah, there you go. Oh yeah, I should get that set up. This is how old school I am. So and so it's like people don't realize that you would get residuals off of when things get re-aired, right? In terms of network. And now that's changed so much with streaming. The deals that are made don't compensate the actors, the writers, especially, and all of like the directors and everything. Like people just think, for example, Mulan, everyone thinks I'm like a millionaire off of Mulan. And I was like, yeah, I got paid a one-time. I don't even get any residuals off that. Like I didn't get that. I didn't have a good agent at the time to get anything worked in. I was a teenager, and just like, do you want to model for Mulan? It's like, of course. But I didn't realize then it's like, oh, maybe you could be entitled to a bit more. And like you said, not to be greedy, but it's like, I worked so much on that to be a part of this character. And so people don't realize like now it's streaming, it's taking away from your livelihoods of, what things were like before, especially for writers, because they're job to job now and they're not getting like on the off season, some of those residual checks. Is that kind of sum it right?
Yeah. I mean, we're asked to do more too,
Right.
with less pay because, for example, I haven't auditioned in person since Warrior, since I auditioned for Warrior
Really?
5 years ago, because it's been all self tapes. So, I obviously am lucky enough to have booked through self-taping over the years, but I haven't walked into an audition office in 5 years. And these auditions are getting longer, and maybe it's because of where I am as an actor, but there, recently I did a 12-page audition, and I had 4 days to put it together. And it was like, what other actor has time to do that? You can't ask an actor who's waitering or bartender to like audition to put together a
it's like a production.
It's a production you have to do in 4 days. It's a short film. It's a short film. Absolutely. And you give a performance, right? Yeah. So when they're demanding that of us, I mean, actually the industry on the other side, they're working less, right? They have more time to do what they do, but we're asked to do more. Yeah. And so we're just asking for like now some boundaries, like, like some restrictions on like how many days do we get to do over like 5 pages, or whatever. We need more time. You can't expect a bartender or a waiter, who most of us are, to do this incredible kind of performance in like 3 days or 4 days. Yeah. The last audition I did had like 3 monologues. It's like, how do you do a monologue? I'm just memorizing that stuff, So anyway, but those are the things we're fighting for, because, once you open a door to like, people are going to take, right? That's just human nature. Once you offer something, people want more. So if we're willing to do these kind of self-tapes, they're going to want more. Pretty soon, they're going to want our own lighting, our own costumes, and give them the film.
Yes,
right. Yeah,
basically.
And some people do. Some people do that because they want the job anyway, but that's not required, right. But so it's all about the edge that people want, but then, it becomes, a rat race. We're on this, and like we don't want to have that kind of competition. We need some clear restrictions and boundaries on what's required, of these auditions. And that's all we're fighting for, fair, just to be fair. That's the big thing these days. But I guess, other than Judo Club and Stop Asian Hate and the fundraiser we're going to start to make our short film about it is, I actually am ready to write these little short stories that I want to put into like a little short story novel about, my own experience as an Asian American activist artist who just like as a hometown boy grew up in Chinatown, so there's and I actually, this idea, the seed was planted by my oldest son, who says, so Dad, how come I don't know that about you? And I'm like, okay, let's talk. And I went,
Yeah.
he goes, yeah. So it's just like, you know what? I want my son to know all of this stuff, all the stuff I've
Yeah.
been through and go, that kind of shaped my identity, my work. And you leave him with some tools on how to like navigate this crazy world that's throwing all this chaos at you every day, and give them both my sons, give them tools to go, I see what that is, I see what that is, and I don't need to accept that, because as a kid, you don't know all this advertising and social media bombarded at you. And the recent studies about social media on teenagers and young girls, especially, it's
Yeah.
horrible. It's like they don't know how to safeguard themselves. You just want information. You're just getting information like everyone else, but the wrong kind of information is extremely dangerous. And so we
Yes.
want to cultivate the right kind of information. And how do you know that? You're not going to get that from school. I mean, the only way you're going to get that is from good parenting and peers, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a little book I want to write, a novel, and maybe, I can start to pitch it and it can become a little film or a little TV
Yeah.
series. And most of that is inspired by Dua, what he did with the harvest. It's like,
Yeah.
even if the harvest doesn't sell, which I'm sure it will, it resonates to people. It will exist in the world as a beautiful thing. So that alone is worth the effort to create.
Oh my goodness. I am so psyched for this project. And thank you for sharing and telling me about it. Because now I'm just going to be texting you and bothering you. So what chapter are you on? What decade are we in? Are we in like young Perry? I mean, and we didn't really get into it. And I don't know if you're open to sharing in the last 5 minutes we have here, but you mentioned that rock and roll saved you. Is that something you're open to sharing, or we have to wait for the chapter to come out?
Well, I'm sure that actually I wrote that chapter already.
Oh, so it's fresh of mind.
I could just say briefly that, like as a young person, again, I just alluded to, it's like you're bombarded by so much things that you will never be able to achieve, and then to measure your self that worth and your abilities to like these TikTok stars or whatever, it's dangerous because
Yes.
it's not achievable. And so when I was a kid and my dad bought the quintessential restaurant in Texarkana, Texas, in the middle of nowhere, and I was uprooted from Oakland, and suddenly I found myself with no community and friends, and all my multicultural POC friends were like suddenly gone, and I was in between black and white. I got a little suicidal. I was 14 years old. And then luckily my older brother was listening to rock and roll, and he was just kind of like telling me what was going on. And we went to the bookstore, and I found these Cream magazine, and hardcore, punk was exploding. And I went, oh my God, what is this? And I bought a guitar, and just hitting the guitar and that raw sound coming out of the amplifier was soothing. It was like, it just relieved the stress, So the playing, punk rock guitar on my own became a meditative practice, because it was a practice that took me out of my mind and put like this energy into this music, that was incredibly vibrant and powerful. And then through that guitar, I suddenly found like something I liked to do that took my mind off like pressures of what is that? Just culture shock and not understanding how I was, separated from my community. And then I didn't have any friends, but through the guitar, I made friends in junior high and high school, and they were like, "Oh, you play music? How about coming over to our jam session? We could play a little music, And I was like, "Okay, and like here's how you played Leonard Skinner, like Sweet Home Alabama." So I started learning these, Leonard Skinner songs, being in their band, and I started making friends through the guitar, right? And rock and roll. And then I started going to rock concerts, and I bonded with these guys. And, and I still think, where are these guys now? They were like my best friends, these sort of Texans, these 14-year-old Texans were my best friend at the time. Right. Yeah. So the guitar allowed that to happen. Now, if I didn't have that experience, I would think that all Texans are a-holes right now,
Yes.
But I know because of that experience, there are good people in Texas. So allies, people that are thinking, where's Perry Young now? But so that's how in a nutshell, the guitar and music saved my life.
Wow. Wow, that's a very moving and incredible story. Thank you for sharing that. And you're right. I think art and some of the things that we do that save us, and we wouldn't think a guitar would save your life, but like it also opens your eyes to shaping your future you, right? Like you said, as an activist, we have a very preconceived notion of certain stereotypes of people. And it's very easy to get wrapped up into that, into the anger of the general, like everyone who has a gun is bad, or, something like that, where you're just so angry. But yeah, that gives me so much to think about, that, your experiences like that can really resonate for such a long time and impact your future self. But that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that story. I am very psyched for this book, by the way, if I haven't made it abundantly clear how excited I am, because, I'm your biggest fan. So,
well, I started writing it. So let's see.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think, like you said, even if it's just to share with your family, because it's the untold stories and a way to connect with your sons, that's amazing. That's amazing. And as somebody who did a documentary on my father, I kind of get the need and the want to know more about all these things that was unsaid, and a period of time, when my father was in China. So it's like, I really had no idea. I never met my grandparents on that side. They were, imprisoned by the communists. So it's like, just to kind of feel a little bit of that connectivity to your past, that desire. So I think you're giving them such a beautiful gift. Whether we get to benefit from it in the public sphere is irrelevant. I think the writing of it is what's important. So, even if we don't get to sharing that, you shared with me today, so I'll take that as a consolation.
Thank you,
Perry. It is always an immense pleasure to talk to you, both on and off air. I just want to just fangirl for a second and let everybody know that I have just the most unbelievable respect for this human, as an activist, as a leader, but as an artist. Like, he's such an incredible person. This is not like just him on the podcast being nice. Like, Perry is just one of those people you can rely on. And I'm just really grateful to know you. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, Mimi. And I am grateful to know you. Thank you so much. No, really.
All right. Well, we will talk again, sir. Maybe after the episodes air and everybody's all hyped up, and we can
let's do it.
Then we can do the post, like we're not spoiling anything. So yeah,
let's do it
about Warrior. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. All right, everybody. Until next time. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.